welcome in to ROC Hockey Weekly. I am Rachel Liebert, Thad Brown joining me, of course, in the studio as well. And the Amherst come off a pretty solid weekend. We've got all of the highlights from those, as well as reactions from me and from Thad and from head coach Michael Leone. And we've also got a lot more Don Stevens. We've been bringing you all the Don Stevens content as his final season with the Amherst winds down. So we've got a lot from Don Stevens night this past weekend as well. So we'll start with all of the news that we normally start with today and some pretty big injury news for the Amherst. Michael Leone announced on Friday that Riley Fiedler-Schultz and Ryan Johnson are out for the rest of the regular season. Not sure about their timeline as far as playoffs go, but that is a pretty big hit to the Amherst. That's on top of Jack Rathbone already being out for the rest of the year as well. Fiedler-Schultz leads the team in goals, so big hit kind of to the scoring of this team as a whole. He's been doing pretty well as Isak Rosen was kind of that guy, and then Fiedler-Schultz kind of stepped up. So Thad Brown, bringing you in. What's your reaction off the top, just to the maybe the loss of these two guys?
Hurts for sure. Obviously, if they come back for the postseason, not as bad. I think the Amherst, in terms of the regular season, they're not quite done, but they're almost done. They're probably going to be the 5 seed. They've got a decent margin behind Belleville and Utica, and I don't think they're going to move up at all. So losing guys for the regular season, I think, is a minimal pain for the Amherst, but obviously you want to get these guys back for the postseason because, as we talked about, the margin for error with this team is just not very big. They need to have every piece on offense they can have because they're probably, if they're going to have any sort of postseason run, they're going to have to win a number 5-4 games. And you want your leading scorer to be a part of those postseason games to score all those goals that you will need to have. So we'll see if he comes back. Still a couple weeks before the Amherst do play a postseason game. There is time, but a concern for sure. Yeah,
it kind of seems like the Amherst, in some regards, can't catch a break when it comes to the guys that have been stepping up and filling these big holes that they've seen. First, like we said, it was Isak Rosen being traded away. Now it's Fiedler-Schultz being down. Ryan Johnson was contributing. All of these guys that we've listed with injuries. I think Michael Leone, too, said in one of his press conferences over the weekend, 11 guys that they started the year with, they no longer have on the team. So whoever was 11, part of that, 20, whatever roster was, either due to injury, due to being called up, being moved around, traded. So definitely kind of a big turnover, and injuries are certainly a part of that. Because of those injuries, the Amherst have picked up quite a few new guys over the weekend as well. A lot of young guys. Give you a little bit of background on them. Maxim Sturbach joins the Amherst for the rest of the season on an amateur tryout. He's just 20 years old, most recently played at Michigan State, so no pro experience there, but has a lot of college experience. And then Liam Valente, the next one, is playing the rest of the season on a professional tryout. He is also from Michigan. He's 22, recently played at Western Michigan University. And then the Sabres reassigned Radim Murta to the Amherst. He's just 18, and he spent his season in the WHL in Seattle. So a lot of young guys coming to the Amherst to maybe fill in some of those gaps that we talked about. Thad, any reaction to the young talent that now is coming in?
Welcome to minor league hockey. This is how it goes when you're in AAA, essentially. When you're in the AHL, you're going to have experiences like this. And this is another reason for us to talk about, as we've mentioned a couple different times, we're looking at or we're testing what Michael Leone is as a coach right now, because he is not playing with a full deck and has to find a way from the Amherst point of view to get something out of the rest of the season.
Yeah, certainly will be a challenge. Like you've been saying, we've been talking about how good of a coach is Leone. This will certainly add on to that. You've got average age of 20 years old for these three guys coming in, so should be interesting to see. All right, let's see what the Amherst did over the weekend. Like I said, pretty solid weekend. We'll start with the bad stuff first. That was the loss to Belleville, not a team we maybe expected them to lose to. 5-2 was the final score. And the big story of this one, the first 3 shots of this game, all given up by Devin Levi. He was in for the first 8 minutes of this game, and then he was pulled. So there's those goals there. Belleville went up 3-0.
This one here, that third one right there, it looks like it hits a couple bodies in front, yeah, or there's a mess there. So I won't totally put it on him. But, yeah, obviously you got your ace goalie, and you give up 3 on 4 shots, and that ain't the way to start.
Yeah, not the way to start. And then Scott Ratzlaff came in. Amherst did come back a little bit. There was a shot there, made it 3-1, and then another one. Makes it 3-2 here. And then Belleville, just the 3 goals that you can't really kind of come back from that. I mean, that was the first 8 minutes of the game.
Even that one right there, though, the one on Ratzlaff, the fourth one there, was a weird situation where he makes a save on a breakaway, and then there's a pass in front that, again, hits like 3 bodies and ends up in an easy shot. And this game This game started out with Consta Helenius hitting the post a minute in, and then on the immediate rush going the other way, that was the first Belleville goal. So, look, it's bad that the Amerks lost that team at home, but the way the game laid out, it was a weird start. Your starting goalie had a bad day. You should have easily, you're inches from being up 1-0 90 seconds into the game, and then 13 seconds after that, you're down 1-0. It was just a weird night. And as you kind of alluded to here, hinted at here, what the Amerks did after that makes you feel a little better about this Belleville game in the bigger picture. Even if, like I said, 0 points against Belleville at home is a big time X that you cannot do when you're a team like the Amerks.
Yeah, I think we said last week that this might have or should have been a gimme game, and then it kind of turns into the opposite.
There are none of those for the Amerks right now.
That is true. Yeah. That is true. I think maybe Devin Levi obviously did not play the way anybody wanted Devin Levi to play, but I think Ratzlaff maybe was a bright spot in this. I mean, he had 14 shots against him, just gave up that one that we saw there, but either way, a loss to Belleville is certainly not how you wanted to start the weekend, but good thing for the Amerks. They have 2 more games to play, and we'll get into this one against Providence, the top team in the AHL, and the Amerks took them down in overtime. It was a pretty good start here for the Amerks. Got on the board there, Anton Wahlberg scored. We've said his name a few times in the last few weeks here. And then Providence, of course, has an answer. That one through traffic through Devin Levi makes it 1-1. Devin Levi, though, kind of redeemed himself this game. He had some big saves here in the second period was one. And kind of two in this game, I noticed the Amerks had a lot of chances. I think Providence outshot them, but the Amerks, like you see here on your screen, there's a chance there. There's a few more chances, just a lot of open opportunities. Michael Leone touched on this after the game too, that they played really hard and physical, and they got a lot of opportunities. Of course, you'd want to convert on more of them, but yeah, a lot of chances here for the Amerks, and then this one actually ends up going to overtime. And then Matteo Constantini wins it for the Amerks, another name we've talked about a lot these last few weeks. He's a young guy. This is his first season in the AHL. So good things for the Amerks, taking down the top team in the league. Don't know if we expected that one, but good result nonetheless.
The stat that stood out to me was the shots, 24-19. This is an Amerks team that we've seen give up 30, 35 shots. They played basically 65 minutes of hockey against the best team in the league and didn't give up 25 shots in a game. Now, Levi was really good too, but this was not your goalie stands on his head and makes a million saves and you win 2-1 in overtime. They hung with this team for 60-plus minutes. They weren't the better team, but I do think they were in the game. They were reasonable. They weren't doing some of the dumb stuff they do defensively where you're handing teams goals. And look what happened. You can win a game against a team like that. Now, it's 3-on-3 in overtime, so if you want to translate it to the playoffs, you're not going to do that again in the postseason. But if you are dreaming as an Amerks fan about a long playoff run, the fact they did that game against the best team in the league tells you that there is a little more in the bag for the Amerks, that they might be able to make something happen in the postseason.
Yeah, I think this game certainly gives them a level of confidence that I don't know if, not that the team didn't have, but I think certainly, at least from us, our perspective, that maybe
it can't hurt no matter what.
And this is, like you said, they hung with them. They looked like it was a complete effort, I feel like, on all fronts for the Amerks. And I think that's what happens when, you play as a unit. And to your point, they didn't, nothing kind of weird happened in this game where they kind of just Providence gave them the game. I think the Amerks really did earn this game. Providence was obviously the better team, I think, overall, but I think this is a big win for the Amerks. Does this give you more confidence going into the playoffs, maybe? Sure.
I mean, you look at the weekend and you think Belleville and Providence win, lose one, which is what happened. It was just not the games you thought would happen. But yeah, and again, it's less the score, because when I saw the score, my immediate thought was, I didn't watch the game. My immediate thought was, did Levi just have an incredible game? And he was good. But that was not the story. They played a game that was much more, I thought, responsible and organized and clean than what they've put together, especially when they play the Lavals of the world, the better teams of the world against this Providence team.
The Amerks wrapped up, I guess, their weekend, started their week yesterday with a game against Cleveland, see if they can keep that winning streak or start a winning streak, and they did. They won in a shootout 4-3 against Cleveland. So we'll get into this one here. Trevor Kuntar, he's been doing good things lately, kind of got the Amerks on the board there. And then Constantini, again, like I said a million times these last few weeks, he keeps helping the Amerks out there. That was a 2-0 lead. Cleveland does close the gap here. This one on Devin Levi was a really kind of an interesting shot. from this angle at least, you can see it just looks an unlucky bounce. Really,
well, yeah, but not in control of the rebound. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not an easy play, I don't think, but that's that's one you want your goalie to do better with, I think.
There's Trevor Kuntar again, extending the lead for the Amerks. And then Cleveland makes it 3-2. And then this is what happens with 22 seconds left in the game. Shot bounces off of Gavin Bayreuther, then kind of bounces off of Levi and then goes in. So
even Bayreuther's trying to get the stick on it, and he gets the stick caught on Levi, and he couldn't pull the puck away from the crease as it's going in. One of the dumber goals you'll ever see, especially to tie a game up.
Yeah, so then the Amerks go to overtime here. Devin Levi, a few good saves.
He's really good in this overtime.
One, yep,
Then off the post,
And then they go to a shootout, and Carson Meyer, little nice move there, puts the Amerks with the advantage, gives them the advantage there, and then Cleveland has the final chance, and they miss it. And the Amerks take the win. So 2 wins in a row from the Amerks over 2 solid teams. Cleveland's a pretty solid team as well.
Third place in the division, I think, right now.
Yeah, so two good wins for the Amerks. Certainly what you want to see as you kind of get into the end of the regular season.
The Levi bounce back, I think, was the story of kind of the last 2 games after he has the game against Belleville where he's out of it in 8 minutes, 3 goals on 4 shots, and then plays pretty well against Providence. A game, again, we talked about, everybody was good. And separate of that first goal, I thought his Cleveland game was pretty good also, and was really good in overtime. I mean, he makes 2 point-blank saves. Yeah, they caught a break on a breakaway that went off a post, but if not for Levi, there's a good chance they get 1 point out of that game instead of 2. And even like we said, the tying goal is almost nobody's fault. It's one of the dumber. This is why hockey can be infuriating sometimes, because you can do all the right things and the puck bounces 3 different ways and you're stuck. So I thought, and you set it up nicely when we went into the highlights to begin with, the whole weekend was pretty darn good for the Amerks, even if you started with an egg on your face loss against Belleville. So both these last 2 games against quality competition, and you asked before, do I have more confidence about the Amerks in the playoffs? Yes, I do, because these are solid games that you're not doing stupid things. You're kind of, not want to say dictating, but you're certainly playing with stronger teams.
Yeah, of course you want that first one against Belleville, but I think the thing too that, you see a bad game, quote unquote, from Devin Levi, but you rarely see back-to-back bad games from Devin Levi. And I think this was certainly just an example of that. I mean, you want that first one against Belleville, kind of thinking that that's going to be your win over the weekend. But I think to bounce back and especially get that Providence win when they're they are the best team in the league percentage-wise. So I think it's a big win for them. Solid weekend. And certainly, like I said, what you want to see as they hopefully secure that fifth place spot and get into the postseason here. All right, we are going to get into our listening to Leone segment. Of course, we got head coach Michael Leone, and he had a lot of reactions to this weekend. We're going to go back to that Providence win. Leone pretty happy with his group. Someone asked him if it felt like playoff hockey, and here's his take on where his team is at, what that game, the result of that one was, and as they kind of head into the postseason here.
It's a group that just, they believe that, if we play the game a certain way, if everybody's committed to playing winning hockey and the buy-in's there and we're taking care of our own net, and I thought we defended really well. Sure, they got their looks, so did we, but I think the guys feel it like we've come a long way as a group, big time, and I think we're a lot better team than we were, Christmas time, January, and I think that we're playing our best hockey right now. Like, I really believe that.
Do you think the Amerks are playing their best hockey right now?
I think they are. Certainly over the last few months. I mean, with the hockey season, when they start in October, November, and everybody's dialed into football, I'm not really dialed into the Amerks about how are they doing Game 7, whatever it is. But over the last 2-3 months, the quality of play has definitely risen. It's not consistently there, again, as the Belleville game proved, but overall, this was the most responsible I think I've seen the Amerks play defensively. It felt like the most organized they were defensively. And you've seen the results, getting 4 points out of 2 games against 2 playoff teams. So I'm not telling anyone to make reservations for Memorial Day hockey with the Amerks, but the idea of them getting through a best of 3 and really putting a scare into Laval in round 2, I think we can really put that on the table as a reasonable objective for the Amerks.
Yeah, I could certainly see them with the results of this weekend, they at times look like a real playoff hockey team.
Yeah.
And I think, taking that with them is, not going to be nothing but helpful. Leone keeps pointing out too, like since the Laval series is where they've kind of started to go upward. They've won 6 of those 12 past games, but they were wins over Providence, Syracuse, Cleveland. So these are all good teams. Also some losses in there. You throw in Belleville, you throw in Utica, which are ones that you don't want to see as well. But I think the wins over those good teams are more important, or can maybe stand out more than the losses over the bad teams at this point. So compared to the rest of the season, I think this is maybe where they start to find their peak. I know we mentioned that last week too about peaking at the right time. I think this certainly is maybe where this team is peaking.
On the bright side, you don't play bad teams in the playoffs, so
That's
this
true.
might work out good for the Amerks.
Hey, you're right. All right, so someone who has been consistently helping the Amerks, maybe with this peaking moment they're having here, is Constant Helenius. He's had 4 points in the last 3 games. Last 10 games, he's had 14 points, so he's certainly been a factor in what the Amerks have been doing these last few weeks. Leone talked about what he's bringing to the team, and actually what he's bringing to the team might be too much.
He's making plays, he's physical, and we're asking, I thought I was going to get in trouble. I think one game I played him 29 minutes, or 27. He's playing probably too much, but we need him right now, and he's getting everybody's best pairing every night. Like there's nowhere to hide for him, and he's night after night he's playing really consistent. He's come a long way. I mean, for a young player to 19 years old to have, close to. I don't know what he's going to end up with, but over 60 points as a young kid, and he's been outstanding for us.
29 minutes is a lot of minutes.
Yeah.
And the thing with Helenius is when you look at who's on this team and the stats of, who's contributing, he leads the team in points. He's got 59. Second to him is Zach Jones. The majority of those come from his assists, as we've talked about a million times. And the third to him is Figler Schultz, who we know is out for at least the rest of the regular season. And then next is Trevor Kuntar, who has 34 points compared to Helenius' 59. So he is the guy right now, I would say, on this team. And 29 minutes is a lot, but I think if he's capable of doing it, he's a 19-year-old kid. I think he might be the one that is capable of putting in 29 minutes. It's a lot, but I think maybe that is, like he said, what the Amerks kind of have to do right now in order to win.
He's the star of the team right now. And the ascension after the Rosean trade has been impressive because you don't always know if a guy like Helenius is ready to be the lead guy. And he has not only been ready, but he's lifting guys. You think about where this team was when it was Rosean calling the shots. Where was Matteo Constantini? He wasn't as consistently involved. You almost feel like Constantini has been able to blossom a little bit. And I might be reaching a little to credit that to Helenius. But regardless, the loss of Rosean, although I'm sure it has been felt in places, you don't notice it because Helenius has stepped right into that role, been same amount of production, same amount of consistency. The goal he scored on last Wednesday when they lost to Charlotte at home, they're down 3-1. They're on a 5-on-3 power play. Helenius walks straight down Broad Street. And before he releases the puck, that thing's going in the back of the net. That kind of thing with a 19-year-old, even when you're not playing at the NHL level, just as a part of professional hockey, that to me was a goal that said this guy has flipped a switch and has reached a different level when it comes to being a part of this league.
Yeah, that's the thing Leone has said is just he's a young kid, but you can tell that he's really found his place and his role within this team. And just being young kind of, gives him that extra motivation to kind of prove himself a little bit and be the leader. And I think he's stepped into that role. Like I said, we've talked about a lot of these young guys. We mentioned it at the top of the show of these young guys they're bringing in, Helenius being 19. And Michael Leone is very much aware that his team is very young. He was actually asked if he would prefer to coach younger guys or more experienced guys. He said, it'd be kind of cool to have some more experienced guys on the team, but he kind of likes the challenge and talked about just, what that team being young has kind of affected his way of coaching and affected the results they've seen this season.
This is their first time going through it. They don't know any better. They've never been through a season of 7 and 11 games, and they don't know. They just go out there and play. That's why I love them so much. They work, and this has been great for them in their careers. This season for me has been, I think as our staff, I think we've probably, just in my time being a head coach, I think this is the most we've coached, and I'm really proud of where the group is right now, big time.
Leone went on to kind of list a lot of the guys that are young. I mean, there was 7 or 8 guys. Helenius is 19. Ratzlaff is in his first season. Jagger Joshua, this is his first full season pro. The list really goes on. Do we think that this team being young, the Amherst are typically a pretty young team compared to the other teams in the league, but do we think this team being young is maybe what has stood in their way this season from getting those results that maybe people expected?
It's always going to be a thing when it comes to the Amherst, especially when you talk about late season hockey. Can you win playoff games? Because the veterans who know where to be, who know how to get through a tough spot, how to defend a 2-1 lead, stuff like that, they're going to have an advantage. So certainly it's been an obstacle. I do think for this team, it feels like it's been more so because we've talked about the defensive lapses. We've talked about the issues they've had in terms of just presenting chances that are way too easy, way too poorly defended. So I do think the youth has been a more of an issue on this team. But like you said, with the Amherst, this is the hand, that Michael Leone is talking about. I've never coached so much. Get used to it, buddy. The longer you're in Rochester, this is how we roll as a part of the Sabres organization. And especially with the Sabres succeeding, we've talked about it before that the Amherst aren't going to get any help in the postseason. Mm-hmm. The more Buffalo does well, the more the Amherst are going to have to kind of fend for themselves when we get into April and May hockey.
Yeah, it feels like maybe it's just because they're not doing as well. Honestly, the average age of the Amherst might have been the exact same last year, and we just don't know. But maybe because they're not doing as well this season, it feels like more of an issue. A lot of these guys, there's been a lot more turnover. Like I said, 11 guys that started the season with the Amherst aren't playing right now. So that I think could be a factor too. I mean, anytime you have a rookie class in any sport, you're not going to be as, up to date or as matured in the game, I guess, than you would want to be. So it doesn't come to us or to me as like a surprise where the Amherst are at, but I think certainly when you get into the playoffs and you look at Laval and you look at teams that are bigger and stronger and more experienced, it kind of might be maybe the experience issue for sure. All right, every week we get into a Don Stevens Call of the Week. We got things a little bit differently this week. We're going to call it a Don Stevens Moment of the Week. We're going to take a quick break and get into all of the Don Stevens content. But before we do that, we got the Moment of the Week. In January 28th, 2011, Don Stevens was inducted into the Amherst Hall of Fame. So we'll play this iconic Don Stevens Moment of the Week.
Let's go down to ice level for a special Hall of Fame presentation. Here's PA announcer Rocky Parada.
Rochester Americans host the Manitoba Moose during Amherst Hall of Fame nights. He has entertained Amherst fans for over 25 seasons and has become a household name. His accomplishments are too many to mention, but include induction into the Frontier Field Walk of Fame, a Cable Ace Award, and the James H. Ellery Award for outstanding contributions to the AHL. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the voice of Amherst hockey, Don Stevens. Don is receiving a plaque from Jody Gage to commemorate the occasion.
Welcome back to Rock Hockey Weekly. This past weekend was Don Stevens night over at Blue Cross Arena. Don Stevens, of course, being honored for the final season of his play-by-play career. And here's some video here. We got some cool shots from that night for you guys. A lot of cool stuff from Don Stevens, just, honoring him, and had a little pregame speech. All the cool things. I want to get to the shot here. It's coming up. It's my favorite shot of this whole thing, is Don Stevens doing the heart hands. Here we go. Perfect shot of Don Stevens there, but a lot of cool stuff over at Blue Cross Arena. And we're going to hear from the president and CEO of the AHL, Scott Howson, and former broadcast partner of Don Stevens, John Bednarski. So let's get into that real quick and see what they had to say on Don Stevens night.
He's a great example of longevity, he's a celebrity in this town, and he's got a magical voice. And I'm sure the fans have grown up with that. A lot of fans have grown up with that, and it'll just be a reminder of Amherst hockey.
Don is, he's the play-by-play extraordinaire. He's such a perfectionist. He works hard at his job. It makes it easy for whoever's working with him. It makes it a lot easier. Except you got to stop him from talking sometimes because he talks too much. But no, just kidding.
Everybody always has positive stories about Don Stevens. Of course, they do as well. And they mentioned the fans there. Don Stevens talked about the fans and just seeing his name on their jerseys, in the stands that night, and all the support he's received for this final season.
The fans are just unbelievable. I've been told over and over, and of course it's proven out that the fans here are absolutely the best. And the support that I've gotten from not only everybody in the game, but those outside the game and the fans it's unmatched, unparalleled.
And Don was asked, why Rochester? Why is, he stayed in Rochester for 40 years. He's had aspirations to go on to the NHL, but, I love this answer from him of why did he stay in this city for so long?
I'm blessed. I really am. And certainly there's a disappointment of not making to that next step, because that obviously was my goal, was to go to the top of the ladder, if you will. It didn't work out that way, but I still think that there was somebody somewhere that was watching out for me and knew that this is where I should be and what I should be doing. And one of the things that when I announced that this was my last year was that I wanted to go out on top, and I don't think I could get any more to the top than I am right now, even if I was in the National Hockey League. I don't think I could do any better, and I don't think would ever be receiving the kind of accolades and tributes that I'm receiving right now, being right here with the Rochester Americans.
We've talked about Don a lot on the show, obviously had him on the show a few weeks ago. Thad, just quick takeaway of just, what his career has kind of come to in this final season.
Kudos to the Amerks. I thought they checked all the boxes, did all the right things. Don said, I want to go out on top, and it feels like I am. It's in part because the organization's done a good job about honoring him properly. Everything looked good. The right people showed up. John Bednarski coming into town was perfect. He was with Don for the longest time. Doing it right is a part of honoring someone, and the Amerks did exactly that. And I'm glad that Don gets to see it that way and gets to experience, first class kind of treatment, even though he's in the minor leagues. And look, the point of this job is to enjoy what you do, enjoy your life. Even though Don didn't get to the NHL, I think he very much checked that box.
I think too, when he was here talking to us, talking about he doesn't feel like he deserves all this recognition, but it's cool to see that the Amerks have really given him all of the recognition they could, and how much the fans have been receptive to the whole thing. It's been really cool to see, and he always has fun stuff to say. So it's been cool.
For sure.
All right, that is going to wrap up this week's Rock Hockey Weekly. I'm Rachel Liebert, Thad Brown joining me as well, and we'll be back next week as the Amerks last week of the regular season. So we'll have all of the highlights, all the stuff from those games as well. We will catch you then.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.